Charles, tell us about the connection between Joe Namath and George Benson. Obviously, two iconic figures in their fields, but two different fields.
Well, that's a very interesting question. I've worked with George a long time, many decades, but I've known Joe Namath before then, and or at least probably 12 years or so longer. And Joe was a big fan of George Benson, especially when On Broadway came about, his name, Broadway Joe. And Joe really loved George. When I started producing George, I told him about that, and George was a titanic fan of Joe's, the way the guarantee, and he just loved Joe. The amazing thing is these guys grew up about 25 miles apart, were exactly the same age, and had never met. And it was just ironic that happened. So, it happened to be that George was performing in Florida, near Joe's house, and I went down, and that picture you see is at the introduction of Joe and George, these two iconic giants from their fields of sports and music. And I got such a kick out of it because after watching how people reacted to them over the decades, how they reacted to each other, it was such a joy, it's such a beautiful feeling. And then that night at the concert, when George did On Broadway, some people in the audience spotted Joe and they were saying, "Hey, your song." And Joe had such a great time. He even said to me it was one of the best times he ever had. And George and he have become great friends since. They always ask for each other. They chat once in a while. And I'm just so happy and pleased that I was the conduit to make that happen. And again, my two great loves, music and football, sports, entertainment.